Studies show that 92% of people could straight away identify which safety behaviours they were using when asked. People that learn to drop these behaviours come across as more comfortable and less anxious as a result. They're more likable and enjoyable to be around because they're more friendly and engaged, not because they look less anxious. Safety behaviours hide our true selves. Learning to let go of these allows us to build more genuine and authentic connections. Hey there, I'm Neil and I struggled with social anxiety for more than 2 decades. On this channel, every week, I'll be bringing you the best methods and strategies that I've used in my own life to feel more confident. What makes something a safety behaviour is not the action itself, but it's the reasons behind why you are doing it. Some people can face their fears for a long time but not see that much progress, and this is likely because they're using safety behaviours so that they're partially avoiding their fears. Safety behaviours can prevent a person from realising that their worst fears are unlikely to happen or blown out of proportion. Safety behaviours can be different for everyone. There is no definitive list. Here are some of the most commonly used. Alcohol, drugs and medication maintain social anxiety in the long run. Some people might require taking medication to get started, but the goal should always be to cut back. The same thing applies to alcohol. A person will probably know if they need to have a few drinks to calm their nerves at a party, but instead of just cutting it out all in one go, it can be better to gradually taper off of it. Some people may carry around an anxiety pill with them wherever they go, but then this can actually create a reliance on it and a safety net, which means they'll never fully be able to let go and overcome their anxiety difficulties. There was actually a guy at an anxiety support group that I used to go to that had been going there since I was even born for more than 30 years, and he had trouble eating in public and he'd always carry a pill with him in his pocket, but he'd been doing it for so long and clearly this strategy of doing that never actually worked for him. It just helped to maintain the problem. There was another guy as well recently that came to one of my online social confidence practice groups, and he said that he had only realised recently that he'd been using alcohol as a crutch for many years, and it wasn't until he stopped drinking that he realised that he actually had social anxiety, and that was one of the reasons that he'd been drinking a lot in the first place for so many years. And I know that this is the case with a lot of people as well. Another very common safety behaviour, and one that I'm really working hard on myself to drop, is using distractions to appear busy. So this might be getting out your phone and checking it constantly when you're in a room with people if you're not engaged in conversation, or just looking at a TV screen if there's one in the room. This has probably become such a habit that you may not even be aware that you're doing it, to avoid that feeling of self-consciousness and that thought that everybody's staring at you and thinking what a loser you must be because you're not talking to somebody. A good way to begin changing this behaviour is to begin keeping your phone in your pocket at all times whenever you're engaged in conversation or around other people, and only take it out if you really need to. You can look around the room if you're not in conversation and actually see if people are staring at you and judging you negatively for this, and you'll probably find that most people are far too busy and wrapped up in conversation and that they're not even paying attention to what you're doing. You can even just practice being mindful instead. Some safety behaviours can be even more subtle, and people may not even realise they're doing them because they only reduce the anxiety a little bit. For example, some people might be able to have a conversation at a party but avoid eye contact because it makes the interaction feel less intimidating. A lot of people with social anxiety might think that they don't know how to make eye contact properly, but when they're actually around people that they know well, they probably do it naturally without even thinking about it. And it's only when they're talking to people that make them feel anxious that they consciously are aware of the eye contact that they're making, and they suddenly feel as though they don't know what to do, and they get tunnel vision and all kinds of other symptoms. It's the overthinking caused by the anxiety that makes us feel as though we have a problem, and when we feel self-conscious, we start to question our body language and everything we're doing, and we start to think what we're doing isn't normal. As a general rule of thumb, aim to make eye contact no more than about 2/3 of the time you're talking with someone. Less than 1/3 signals anxiety, and anything more than about 2/3 can come off as a little bit too intense. Hesitation is a big one, and it's one that I've struggled with a lot myself, and it is especially difficult when you're around people that you don't know that well. It's just learning to pluck up the courage to say things when you want to say something in a conversation or if you're in a meeting without really thinking about it. Group conversations can be particularly challenging for this, because there can frequently be times where people may speak for 5 or more minutes without there being a break, and then the next person may immediately jump in or even start talking before the person that was speaking finishes. Because there may not be a break in the interaction for a very long time, you need to learn to be more assertive to get your point across, because if you keep waiting for your chance to speak, then that time may never come. When you're talking with people you know well, you probably find that you naturally start talking while they're still talking, or you immediately speak when they finish what they're going to say. It's just a normal thing to do when you're in conversations with people that you know, but when you may not know people that well, you begin to overanalyze these things and they start to feel like they're really difficult. You need to learn to speak before you have a perfect sentence formed in your mind of exactly what you want to say. Just have a general feeling of what you want to say and learn to speak up. And with time, it will get easier and easier. Through experience, you'll learn to trust yourself more, and you'll start to learn that nothing bad really ever happens. And even if it does, it's normally a very small thing, and you can brush it off pretty quickly, and you just learn from those mistakes. If you hesitate too long to the point where it starts to feel really uncomfortable and you haven't said what you wanted to say for a few seconds, then just try to let it go and bring your focus back to the conversation. Something that I've done in the past and I found really helpful for dropping the habit of hesitation is going to improv classes. These are really good because they train those muscles of being a lot more spontaneous and just trying to speak up even when you didn't have something planned to say. Throughout a session you'll get dozens of times where you get to speak up and insert yourself into conversations and all sorts of activities, so if you haven't tried them already, then I'd highly recommend it. Do you feel anxious when people ask you what you were up to at the weekend or what you've been up to lately? This could be because you're trying to hide your true interests and activities. You may constantly try and keep the focus of the conversation on the other person instead of talking about yourself, and you might ask them lots of questions so that the focus of the conversation never ends up on you. This can actually backfire and make you come off as more closed off and awkward. This can come from feelings of toxic shame and inferiority, and it can lead you to constantly be monitoring your personality and how others perceive you rather than freely expressing yourself. You'll start to form better connections with people when you learn to be more open and vulnerable with them. Try acting more as you would around your closest friends when you're with other people. You'll probably start to find that people hold you in much higher regard when you start to open up and share things about your life as well when you're talking to them. People don't just want to speak about themselves, they want to hear about what's going on in your life, because unless you do that, they find it very difficult to get to know you and to really create those deeper and more meaningful connections. For me, I found this habit to be one of the most difficult to break, and it's still something that I'm working hard on to get better at. I find that the more I do open up and talk about myself with people, the more they do seem to appreciate it. It does get easier with time, but it's definitely one of the biggest ones that can make a real difference in your life. Do you notice yourself ever using any of these safety behaviours when you're talking to other people? Once you know which safety behaviours you're using, you can then do some experimentation to see what will happen if you remove the behaviour. In order for you to fully overcome social anxiety, it's important that you recognise these behaviours and gradually learn to drop them and slowly uncover the truth and see if what you fear will actually happen. If you enjoyed this video and you want to watch more, then check out my next one, where I'll be going into detail about the best way that you can begin to gradually put yourself into more and more challenging social situations. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this content valuable, then please hit the like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.